Integrity. So there are people who use God's name to justify harming people. This happens all over the world. It happens here at home in the U.S. It happens everywhere you can possibly think of. There are people who will harm children to put them in a picture to try to squeeze money out of people maliciously. And they will get other people to help them by participating in doing that. And so when you get boots on the ground, actual people to verify what's going on and see what's really going on, that's when you can trust, that's when you can know who a person is. And so there are people that do that in business today, there are people that do that in churches, and there are people that, and here's the thing, there are people who are mad at churches, there are people that are mad at people online who are fakes or reals, that's unjustified. So here's the thing, if you're going to be effective in integrity while not participating in harming just people who are actually going out about God and who are actually doing the right thing, tell them the truth. Go out and get boots on the ground, get somebody who's trustworthy, who can verify what you're doing, and move forward in something effective. Because what happens is when you go out and participate in harming those unjustly for things you can't know, like being somebody who's not of the church and then saying how people of the church are imperfect, well, that's why they go to church. They're imperfect. They accept that, and you're just as imperfect not going to church. You just don't believe that that's the answer. You believe something else is the answer to your imperfection. So don't harm people going to church just because you disagree with what you believe the solution is. It's not necessary to be unkind or harmful. What the problem is false beliefs. Now, if you believe in being militantly ignorant, you believe in that it's perfectly fine to say you're about God and that you can take in funds that way and then, really be about money or this or that, well, then you're a fraud and you're not going to really truly care or steward things well. And sooner or later, that will come back to bite you, or it will bite your family long term. But it's a very hard thing to walk that fine line in between of integrity. And it's something that you grow in, and you hope people grow in over time. But don't just go out and assume that everybody's a scammer, because there are a lot of people who don't have the resources to work with who are really trying to do something good. There are other people who are in fact very terrible and trying to use lower grade resources to manipulate how you see things to try to get you to do something that maybe you want to do because you care about somebody or you have that tug of your heart. And there are, maybe it's that you want to believe in the best in people. But, somebody who sits there and goes out and tells you, just give to anything. I mean, come on, really? You believe in giving to anything and anybody? I don't believe that for a second. I don't know one person that does. But that doesn't mean that person who's telling you that may not have some sort of, mask or guard underneath. Maybe they've been taken advantage of. So have some integrity to walk through and see what their reactions are. They may have a guard up. Doesn't mean, just because somebody presents something doesn't mean who they are. Don't look just to what they say. Look to what they do. Look how they follow through. Look at their integrity, not just of their works, but not just of their faith, but of their walk, of their works. Do their deeds match their what they say? Is it that, because if you don't have somebody that's willing to walk that line with you and willing to care about you despite, you're never going to see that in another person. You're just not. Somebody is going to take advantage of you and you're not going to know why, and it was entirely because You participated in teaching people how to take advantage of other people just by shifting beliefs around, and you're constantly being frustrated or angry in your own life because you're manipulating God, and you've convinced yourself that you can be God. And that's not true. You can't decide what's valuable and what's not valuable. You can understand what's valuable and not valuable. You can learn about what's valuable and not valuable. You can grow into deeper knowledge of what's valuable and what's not valuable. But once you make yourself the decider of what's valuable and what's not valuable, you become deceived yourself, because sometimes people, they present a false humility or a false guilt or a false frustration, and sometimes it's a real frustration. It's a real guilt. It's a real this or that. And once you make yourself a decider of who somebody else is, you're going to feel frustrated and angered and sad yourself when you realize you were wrong and you justified harming somebody who was really going out and doing good. And you're going to justify it. Well, you're going to try to find a way to justify it in your shame. You'll try to find a way. And what happens is that those people willing to walk those lines, they're doing so, and you got to commend them. It's very challenging to give more to the thief. It's very challenging to have faith in God and to trust Him over all else. Because when you don't, what you have a culture of reaction that values emotion, and then you never know if somebody's just overconfident or if somebody is displaying a false humility. You never really know if you're being duped, because you've created an atmosphere where there's no time. And if there's no time, if you're under so much duress to produce, and everybody else is, and there's no time to confront malicious ignorance, then you may justify just going with the flow, which isn't necessarily helpful, because it allows people to continue harming people unjustly. It allows for mistakes to become greater. So you need to learn to both strategize and move fast. And if you are not participating in realizing that you need to figure out whether you need to be patient or slow or fast or whatnot with each individual, and that you need to not just look to yourself but also them. And if you don't do that, if you're only focused on yourself, you're only focused on taking, you're only focused on the exchange, and you're not ever focused on giving any empathy, giving any regard, then what happens is you'll be happy with your gold, you'll be happy with your power, you'll be happy with this or that, but it will not last. Relationships last. My kids will see me walking through things, and even if I don't get to confront them in my lifetime, if Paul goes in prison, I guarantee you he's going to have a far greater response long term than somebody who was not willing to face that prison, somebody who was not willing to face their cross. They looked to what was easy rather than what they were called to. They looked to make things harder for others, justifying, well, this is the easier path. They justify lying to somebody while demanding that people tell them the truth. And they don't understand their frustration. They don't understand why they have people around them or jackals around them. And they put on a face saying that it's all okay. But it's not. It's not. A real person is not bifurcated. They understand the personal affects professional, professional affects the personal, and then you got to care about both. And if you don't, you'll justify harming good people and end up with bad people swarming around you, and you may not even know it until the last moment where you're taken out. And then you have all these regrets that you're left with. You have to think, how did this happen? You're like Jacob, who was deceived He was taught to deceive to get his way, and then realized he had 14 years of work that he had to do to get the one thing he wanted rather than 7, and going back and facing his brother. He'll wrestle with God. But you could have wrestled with God up front. You could have faced the desert up front. Hope this helps.